Long time no see.
Hi there.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Oh, the meeting is being recorded. Are you ready?
Sure.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready. Hey, everybody. We are the Office of Accessibility Resources. We're not on introductions yet. This is our agenda for today. First, we're going to let you know who we are, what we provide, some good things to know about our office, and some strategies in working with students. And we're going to talk about our new online registration process so you're aware of what that looks like. So I'm Kate Colucci. I'm the Director of Accessibility Resources. I am going on my second year here after a long time in K-12 education and could not have landed in a greater place or with greater colleagues who I will let introduce themselves.
I will go next down the line. My name is Maddy Knaack. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the assistant director in our office. I have a background in residence life and housing as well as student orientation and family engagement. So lots of ways to support students on my end. And I am in my second year.
There you go.
Took a
Congratulations.
second, thank you.
I am Pat Devendorf. I'm the associate director in the office. I've been here for 19 years. And I echo what Kate said. I've landed very well. So
True.
Okay, so thanks for joining us today. We would ask during the presentation at any time if you have a question, right? Click your little hand raiser and we will take questions throughout the presentation at any time.
And John, if you wouldn't mind letting us know in case we don't see it, that would be awesome.
okay, where are we? I mean, I should know that, although I'm an old person, so maybe I don't know where I am, but I do. We're at 155 in the Marano Campus Center. I recommend to each and every one of you, if you haven't been here before, please come by and see us. If you're a faculty member, you want to see where your exams are given and proctored, please come by and see us. Our office hours are listed, and we also have later hours during the semester by appointment.
Very true. If you ever get lost, our interactive map is awesome. Or if any of your students, you want to pass them off to us, we always are trying to recommend that students use the interactive map to try and find out where they need to go.
Okay, what we provide. Now, I'm not going to be the guy who reads the slides, but I will read the first line. We provide academic accommodations to students with documented disabilities. I just want to highlight briefly the word documented. Documentation can play a key role in what we do here, but probably a more important issue for us is that we want that student to come in and have a discussion with one of the three of us to determine appropriate accommodations. So if a student ever approaches you and say, I don't have documentation, please encourage them to come see us anyways. We also deal with the physical accessibility on campus. We work with any accessibility issues. So if it's like commencement or anything like that, we also are a prime player in that.
Sure.
So we work with students with a variety of disabilities, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, right? So some are episodic disabilities that happen occasionally. Some are ongoing disabilities that students come here with, and some are permanent disabilities that are very clear to us. Another group of students we also deal with and really rely on instructors and staff sometimes to help us with this are those students with temporary disabilities. The student that falls down and breaks a wrist, right, and can no longer write in class or utilize their laptop and may need some assistance with that. Or we work in partnership with the Office of Dean of Students, maybe for students that's going to be on a prolonged leave, right, for a medical absence. So you may see us intervene with students who are not typically registered with us, but who are experiencing a temporary disability. So we do work with them also.
I'd also like to add in too that if you encounter a student who is pregnant and wants some support from the institution, we can work collaboratively with Title IX and Lisa Vaneski to be able to support that student because while we don't see that as a disability, we do want to recognize that there are a lot of things that can change your body that affect how you experience class in a classroom, and we can help work through that with students.
Thanks for that, Maddy.
You're welcome.
So one of the pieces we really want to touch on today, right, when we talk about some of the disabilities we see students present with in our office is really kind of understanding the neurodiverse student, right? So if we think about it, really, what is neurodivergence? And really that has to do with any brain-based difference that impacts a student in the areas of attention, learning, mood, and perception, right? So these would be inclusive of students who have experience with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, Tourette's, sensory processing disorder. Those are just a few examples. And as you can see, right, in our fast fact, 15 to 20% of people report being neurodivergent. Many students or people in general remain undiagnosed or are diagnosed and choose not to disclose that. And I think if we could get people to kind of switch their lens and to look at neurodivergence, not as a deficit, but it's a difference, right? It's not somebody who processes the world in a different way, which doesn't make that a deficit for that person. So some of the common challenges students report to us both on campus and in the residence halls. And I think we talk about residence halls and on campus, we can also generalize some of this right to the classroom situation. Some students report really feeling sensory overload, right? Lights, crowds, those can really be triggering for some students. And we see big impacts on executive functioning as a result of some of these disabilities, right? Students' ability to manage time, to maintain a routine, to stay focused, and to be able to anticipate maybe what is coming next. The other piece that we see for students are those communication differences. Some students report that they're very literal in their communication and don't really understand or process or aren't sure how to respond to very inferred information. So sometimes with students in our classrooms, when we're asking them to infer, to predict, that is a challenge, right? They're kind of based in what they actually see or hear, and it's very literal for them. And we also see students reporting a lot of social fatigue and isolation, right? Being in a classroom, being in a residence hall, dealing with people all the time and kind of maintaining that social self can be very overwhelming for students who are neurodivergent, as it can be for adults who are neurodivergent. And they definitely need some downtime. And we, from this end, work on accommodations for students to be able to provide that. And I would think as instructors within the classroom to just be cognizant that that could be something that's happening for students is really important. Some of the other pieces to being on campus in general, right, are those communication barriers. Sometimes it's very challenging for students who are very literal in their communication to feel socially competent to maybe start a conversation with one of their instructors or a staff member, and really to be able to engage in that full conversation. So sometimes it's important for us to do some of those conversation starters for students to see where they're at. I think task initiation is very challenging, and again, prioritization and follow through. And when students hit college, we have high expectations for them, right? Like this is a skill set that everybody is coming with. And I think sometimes we need to just focus on what can we do to assist all students, right? So sometimes having a very clear agenda of any meeting we've invited a student to or in a classroom, right? What is the agenda for the day? What are we going to go over? It's helpful for not just students who are neurodivergent, but for all students to know what comes next. And then, we talk about the manifestation with mental health struggles. I would say that Pat and Maddy would agree with me that we see many students, right, who may have an academic diagnosis per se, or rather a diagnosis that impacts them academically, but comorbid with them very often are some mental health challenges that accompany those students, right? In some of our neurodivergent students, it's not uncommon to see students who also have anxiety, depression, and maybe some OCD. So some inclusive practices, right, that we recommend for everybody are using multiple forms of communication for students, emails, visual schedules, using signage for things that are being done within the classroom, the residence hall is very helpful for students. And again, providing those structures, agendas, timeline, visual calendars are great for students, and kind of enforcing quiet hours in the residence. I know that might be an impossible task, right? From what I've heard. But for students to be able to get some of that downtime, I think is really important. And then offering alternative activities when appropriate and when it fits with what is happening, right? So are those accommodations? Are they modifications? Well, some of them do come from our office, of which we'll talk about in a little bit, and those would be considered accommodations, right? If something is modified for everybody in an environment, it is no longer an accommodation because it's available to everyone. So when you think about that, and that environment either maybe being your classroom, your office, if you modify your presentation, again, that's not accommodating one student, it is modifying it for everyone. And then just being aware, right, of what is the personal space like in your environment and what might that be like for any student who comes in, right? Physically, do they have enough room to navigate your office when they come in for an appointment if they're in a motorized wheelchair, which tend to be larger, right, than the manual wheelchairs? And then to look at, do we have a sensory inclusive environment? Are we able to provide some of those pieces that meet all student need?
Good job, Kate.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that are offered from our office on the accommodative side. So we do offer assistive technology, and I will also talk about the accommodations that you might see on what we call an accommodation letter. If any of you are instructors, you've probably seen those before. But something that you might see in the classroom versus what we have in our testing center. We have noise machines, noise canceling headphones, MP3 recorders, accessible desks. So we have standing desks to accommodate different heights as needed, and speech to text or text to speech, well, and or text to speech software. Something that you might see in a classroom, if any of you are instructors, whether it's for GST 104 or for a different course, you might see some students that have their computers open that offer something called Genio Notes. It's a note-taking software that helps students better be engaged in your classroom. We also provide Braille printers, interpreters, things of that nature for students to be able to have access in your class too. So on top of that, we do have different types of accommodations that you might see students come across that will take advantage of. And this, keep in mind that both of these lists are not exhaustive. We are always looking for new ways to be able to support our students and find different ways for them to be successful in the classroom. And you're going to see stuff on this list that involves testing accommodations, that includes classroom accommodations, housing accommodations, even allergen accommodations as well. So we kind of cast our net wide in that regard to be able to support our students. But keep in mind that there might be students in a classroom setting or even in your office that may not be registered with us, but they might have a visual disability. Like let's say they use a wheelchair for whatever reason. Keeping that inclusive design that Kate was just talking about, you should always just be making your spaces available for any type of person to be able to experience it in a relatively similar manner than the other folks in the room. So kind of keep that in mind as you are navigating spaces. The next time you walk into a classroom, think about if you were using crutches or you were using a wheelchair. How would your experience differ from you potentially walking into that room? And just kind of think about that the next time you do it.
I just want to kind of go on with what Maddy said. If you're an instructor and you happen to be teaching in Lanigan and you have a student who uses a wheelchair, typically what we'll do is we have a setup where we can have a table at the same level as the instructor. We'll have a monitor on it. We'll have exactly whatever you put on the screen. So it's not like you're sitting at the front row at the drive-in. This way the student can still experience the class, but they're not craning their neck to look up at the screen. So that's one of those physical things that we can do. And as Maddy said, we have students here who have visual impairments, physical impairments, who choose not to avail themselves of our services. That is every bit their right to do it, but we still need to work on having the most accommodative place we can have for them.
For sure.
Okay, working with interpreters. The main thing to understand here is that the interpreter is for the student. Therefore, I mean, your interaction with them really should be pretty negligible. You really don't need to do a lot with them. We just provide the materials for the student. It just helps the student better access the class. So they will show up in your class. There's usually two if it's a longer class. They will take turns interpreting for the student. The student will typically sit in the front just because that way it gives them a clear line of sight with the interpreters. If you have any questions about interpreters in your class or how to interact with them, by all means, please feel free to reach out to our office.
For sure.
Okay, process of receiving accommodations. Okay, so what students do, because we have a minute or two here, I get to be a yapper.
Yes.
I can yap. So we ask students, they register with us. Initially, that process is they will provide us documentation if they're able. They'll have a face-to-face meeting with either Maddy or myself, and that's where we're going to determine that appropriate accommodations for them. Students will come in from high school or a transfer from another university. They still have that initial meeting with us. So they meet with Maddy or I, and again, that is the crucial piece of this. The documentation, as I said earlier, is important, but really that interaction, Maddy and I have been doing this long enough. We have a pretty good handle on what's going on with students. And again, we're going to learn from them what their experience is going, what it has been, because every student is different. We could have the same or two different students with the same diagnosis, but it could impact them differently. So it's always super important that we have that conversation. Once we've decided through the interactive process, the appropriate accommodations, the student will then receive a letter, an accommodation letter. This is new for, I don't know if we have any old timers like myself, but how we do it through my ARO, and Maddy will talk more about that. It's a great new program that we use. But that accommodation letter will come to you as the instructor. We'll list the accommodations, and it will have descriptors of each accommodation. If you have any questions about the provision of these accommodations, how is this going to work? By all means, reach out to any one of us. We'd be happy to discuss that with you.
I think on top of that too, we're more than happy to do any presentations with departments as needed. So if any of you are sitting here like, oh, the rest of my team would really love this, just let us know, shoot us an email. We are happy to kind of talk about this now that we have a full team to be able to support our students and colleagues alike. We want you all to make sure that you feel just as prepared as you can.
So you may ask, or you may not, what is the difference between an IEP and a 504? And the reason we're going to talk a little bit about this to begin with is you may have a student in class who has not presented a letter from our office at all, but comes into you one day and says, oh boy, I took that last exam. Or it could be somebody in your office who is like, when I met about my schedule with you, I had an IEP in high school, or I had a 504 in high school. I'm not sure, I need things done a little bit differently. So what does that really mean? So an IEP is an individualized education plan that is developed in the K-12 world, right? And that is for a student to be able to receive services that they need in order to be successful in school. And typically that could be a variety of services, but has to do with the student getting accommodations and modifications. We're looking at how do we need to modify the curriculum for a student? When a student's got a 504 plan, it's really about accommodation. How do we accommodate that student in the K-12, right? How do we put those accommodations in place? And again, a 504 is based on ADA, Americans with Disabilities. So how do we make sure all spaces and places are accommodative for students? When students move to the college level, that IEP really stays in the K-12 world, but that doesn't mean students don't continue to need some level of support. So they will produce IEPs, and we love an incoming IEP from a student. It gives us a great idea about the level of accommodation that student received prior to coming to us and what that might translate into in the college world, right? Mm-hmm. And also 504 plans, very helpful for us. But if a student presents those to you in an office or a classroom, we would really ask that you ask the student, hey, have you connected with accessibility resources? And this is really a document you may want to share with them so that you could get broad-based accommodations here at college. So that's really the IEP and the 504 part of that. Those are critical documentation for us when we're looking at either academic accommodations or housing accommodations for students.
Yeah, definitely keep those as trigger words if you are in an office setting or if you are in a classroom setting and you hear that from a student, be like, are you registered with their office yet? And that might be the avenue that they have to in turn be a little bit more successful in your space. All right, so I'm gonna lean forward a little bit because this is a little tiny text, even though it is accessible minimum according to Title II. So we're going to talk about accommodations in the classroom for those of you that are instructors or will be instructors in the future. It's really good for you to know. So we already talked about accommodation letters. Students who are approved will provide that for you through our new platform, My ARO. It's My Accessibility Resources Online. Instructors will get an email that kind of discloses all of the information from the accommodation letter, but on top of that, the student should be sending you an actual letter attached to an email. We're trying to continue the practice that we've been doing for years, so you should at least have a couple of avenues of like, okay, this student is getting accommodations. Let's talk about it. If you have any questions, let us know. So, faculty responsibility. If a student provides you with a letter, whether it is that email from My ARO or it is the physical document, you are required to honor those listed accommodations. And students may also choose not to use them, but you should be expected to be providing them regardless. So we do have a lot of students who get extended test time on their exams. So if they have extended test time, but they only really feel like they need it during midterms and finals when that anxiety is a little bit higher, that's okay. If you see them in your room, make sure you're not calling them out and be like, are you supposed to be in accessibility resources right now? Don't do that. They feel confident being in that room along with everybody else. That is completely their own volition. So kind of keep that in mind. If you want to talk to them about anything kind of jumping to the confidentiality piece, just make sure that it's not in front of others. You're directing your questions to us as needed, or asking folks to like hang back after class or stop by your office, so on and so forth. So if there are other requests on the letter that the student that are not on the letter, if a student comes up to you and asks for them, changes may require documentation and an updated letter. So if you don't see it on the documentation, come talk to us and we can reevaluate from there. But more often than not, the student is the one who will be kind of coordinating that process with us. And if kind of treat your letter as gospel in that sense. If you don't see something on there, then the student would need to go and make that change.
Can I jump in there for a
Absolutely.
second, Maddie?
Yeah.
So I think the other piece to that is when a student comes into you, and again, right, maybe references, hey, I had a 504 or I had an IEP and this really worked well for me in high school. And you go back and you check the letter and it's not there. If it's something that you provide for everyone in your classroom, then it is not an accommodation. But if a student is asking you to do that in your classroom and it's not something you typically would provide for everyone, please redirect them back to us because as Maddie said, when we meet with students and have those interactive meetings, we go over the documentation and also kind of the history of the disability and really look at what accommodations are appropriate for the needs the student has. So we really try to match those up. So it would be so helpful to redirect them back to us if they do want to add accommodations.
For sure. Thank you, Kate. And the last thing that we want you all to be aware of, if you or someone you know is hoping to accommodate a student who you know you don't have a letter with, if they miss an exam or if you need to reschedule an exam, there might be something going on. Extended learning is probably going to be your best bet. While we do have testing services within our office, they are prioritized for our students that are documented and registered with the office. If you are teaching a class and your student had to step away and needs to reschedule, extended learning is going to be your friend. They are open with limited hours, but they do have a testing center that's available to all SUNY Oswego folks. So that's that on that. Any questions so far? We're doing pretty good on time, so I think we have a second for me to check in. Waiting for a little bubble in the chat as needed or a little hand up. Yeah, hi, Peter. Go ahead.
Hi. Do you have much participation from graduate students in terms of just requests for accommodations or that sort of thing, or does it tend to be more the undergraduate students?
That's a great question. I think we get a good amount of grad students that might need something. They definitely are on the lower end of the ratio, but we do get some folks.
And Peter, it really depends upon the graduate program, because a lot of times if students are using testing accommodations in graduate school, they may or may not have actual exams in class.
Very true. A lot more discussion-based papers. Professor Hurley, what you got?
When it comes to responsibility for making sure the students get the accommodations they need, how forward should we be about making sure that they're using their accommodations when perhaps they don't understand how their accommodations work? Like when a student believes that extra time on an exam means they can stay after class for a longer period of time than everyone else instead of going to the Office of Accessibility Resources.
That's a great question.
That is a really good question. Thank you.
Yeah, really was able to be in the right spot at the right time. Shout out to Tre'Davious White. I mean, he made a great play right there, and the ball happened to flew right to me.
I
Okay.
think that was an accident. You're good.
Okay.
Yep.
So Professor Hurley, what we would kind of circle back to is if a student is asking for that, send them our way. Ultimately, we're going to be the ones responsible for providing that accommodations. Many times when we meet with students, we explain that the reason it has to go through us is because your professor may not have the ability to stay after with you or the room to stay in. So logistically, it won't work, and it may not be conducive to the students' learning. So I would go back to, please go talk to the folks at OAR, and they will, explain the process to you.
No, I think, yeah. I mean, if you can redirect them here, I think that's really important because a piece of that, right? Maddy and Pat do a great job of reviewing for students what their accommodations are and what they look like. But sometimes until a student experiences it, they don't always put all of those pieces together. And we're very cognizant of how busy everyone's schedule is and that you may have one class right after the other. So there isn't an opportunity to proctor that student. And that's really why our services are available here.
Sure.
Okay, Chris asked if the slideshow will be available when you're done.
If you say please.
Absolutely.
You can definitely have it. Absolutely. We will send it out to the CELT folks and make sure that it gets accessible to you. Good question, Chris. Oh my gosh, you're so funny, Chris. Thank you for the please in chat. Okay, cool. We're gonna continue, and if you have any other questions, you can feel free to throw them in the chat or save them for the end. We'll keep her moving.
Okay, syllabus statement. It's located right on our website. This will save you from maybe an uncomfortable conversation as an instructor. You can point to this and say, if you have, exactly what it says, if you have a disabling condition, and you can even, when you're doing your syllabus review on the first day of class, highlight that, and say, if you find yourself, needing these services, here's the folks to talk to. And again, that will make your life a lot easier. That way you're not calling anybody out. The student is then making the choice to come to our office. And that's really where we want it to start. I mean, Maddy and I will do trainings all summer during orientation for students. And we go over this with them. You need to do these things, but just having that message constant and the same for everybody is a wonderful thing. So
For sure.
oh,
The age-old question.
So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about animals on campus. So we have both service animals and emotional support animals. So there is a difference, and you may see a service animal in your office, in your classroom, in the food court with a student, because a service animal and I'm going to really say a service dog. It is a dog or a small pony, by the way. We've yet to see a small pony on campus, and I'm hoping in my tenure it remains that way. But so a service dog you may see on campus, and that dog is trained to do work or perform a task for the benefit of a person with a disability. Service animals do not need to be registered with the Office of Accessibility Resources. A person has the right to have that service animal and bring it anywhere with them. They do need to register on campus with Residence Life and Housing if they are a student who lives in campus housing. So again, we only ask 2 questions of someone who has a service animal. Wait, can you go back?
I know.
for me?
That was next.
That's okay. And that is, what is the task that is performed? And is the task performed directly related to a disability? The person does not have to disclose what the disability is, and they don't have to disclose what the service or task is the dog performs. So you'll often see service dogs with folks who are blind. They may be alerting people who are deaf. They could be pulling a wheelchair. They could be picking things up off the floor for somebody who is either in a wheelchair or has significant mobility issues. They could be alerting a person who may have significant diabetes or a seizure disorder, reminding people to take their medications, and performing other duties in that person's environment. So you very well could see a service dog within any environment on campus, and they are permitted to be anywhere with that person. There could be questions that would come up, right, in a lab situation, depending what's going on, and those would be very individual, and we would need to have those discussions. And then we have emotional support animals. So emotional support animals could be a wide variety of household animals, and they are not pets. So an emotional support animal is an animal that's connected to a person, really based with a disability. And that animal provides one or more, or the relief of one or more symptoms of a person's disability, right? So we see emotional support animals at the college level as being here to allow people to access housing. It eliminates that barrier of not being comfortable or being able to be successful in campus housing. So an emotional support animal is not allowed anywhere except the person's residence hall room. Of course, if they need to take, if it's a dog and they need to take it out, then that is allowed, but they're not considered pets on campus. Somebody asks, hey, can I bring my ESA to class one day? We would really appreciate it if you said no. Your ESA really is to be in your dorm room. And again, emotional support animals are not limited to dogs, but they are limited to kind of common household animals.
All right. I know you've been excited to hear about what the heck this is. I'm gonna
just see if there are any questions about animals.
Yeah, do you have any questions about animals? Thought I could do this, and I couldn't. Ah, ignore
Okay.
that. Here we go. Oh my gosh. I was so self-conscious of you seeing my tabs. I'm sorry. Okay. So my ARO, it is my accessibility resources online. This is our students and our instructors' one-stop shop for anything and everything accommodations. If you are a student, then you have the ability to access all of your accommodations, download your accommodation letter so you can send it to faculty, register your accommodations for specific courses. So students are allowed to be picky and say, I only want my extended time on my tests for these classes because these 2 are the ones that I only have projects in. I don't necessarily need it. So they're allowed to pick and choose in that regard and get picky there. Our students starting this semester will actually be signing up for their testing accommodations through my ARO as well, which is brand new. Before we were doing a little Google form that a lot of our students loathe to Kingdom Come. So I'm hoping that this is better. But the cool thing starting this semester is that instructors will be going in to upload their exams. And in addition to that, they can set parameters for their proctoring instructions. So If you want to tell us that the student is allowed a graphing calculator and 1 page of 8.5 by 11 notes, you can let us know that. We'll be able to go into the system and access it that way. And if you want the exam scanned back to you, we can upload it through my ARO and then it goes right to your inbox. The most efficient, the most helpful thing that I think from the instructor's perspective that you might be able to access is you can see all of the students that have accommodations for all of your classes. So you can narrow it down to say, oh, only for my GST 104 section, blah, blah, blah. I want to see who has accommodations, or for all of them together. It's a great place to be able to see them all in one location rather than going back into your email and finding all of these different student accommodation letters and organizing it that way. I think it's going to save a lot of headache for instructors to be able to see, okay, this student has these accommodations. That's so good to know. I can reach out to them if they need anything. So you can actually log into the instructor portal now, whether you are a GST instructor or a faculty member or anything in between. You should be able to have access as an instructor there, but you can go in there, kind of play around a little bit. It should be under the My ARO resources tab on our website. So feel free to have fun if you want to take a look. But again, this semester we are starting to utilize the alternative testing module that is provided with the platform. So we will be using it way more consistently. And by fall 26, we are hoping to actually have that like fully streamlined for all of our testing accommodations in our office.
So with that being said, Maddy, can I ask you a few questions?
Oh, I'm getting interviewed. Okay.
Okay. So, my ARO, right, is new to us as a registration tool, and Maddy Knaack did a fantastic job of getting that up and running. And all of our students registered through that for this semester. As we move through spring 2026, we will be offering presentations on how instructors can utilize this to upload their exams. So I guess, Maddy, my question is, well, I just said you'll be doing presentations. So with that, is this semester, spring 2026, if professors would like to upload their exams, they would have the ability to do that, but they would also be able to communicate with us how they always have, either through Cindy, through an email, to send an exam to our office. Is that correct?
So that is a great question. To piggyback off of the first part, I want to acknowledge that not only can we provide presentations for folks that are looking to learn more about my ARO, I'm going to be offering a lot of like support hours, whether it's open door hours or like meeting hours, things like that, for people to be able to find a time to meet with me, whether it's individualized or for groups of folks. So yes, that will be possible. I think this semester is definitely our phasing into the platform and this module. So there's truly no way for us to figure out the kinks in the platform until we actually experience it. And we have other colleagues at different institutions that are using the original platform, but they just call it something different. And we can learn from them till the end of our days and still come up with things that might not work as effectively for us. So we will still have our access tests at oswego.edu account available for folks, especially if it takes a while to get into that new habit of uploading. But I will be transparent to say that it will make our team much more effective for you and for our students if you start using this platform into your practice. For those of you that aren't teaching any classes, then you're probably just sitting tuning me out, and I love that for you. But know that at some point, if you are going to be instructing a course, this is probably going to be the way that things will be heading in the direction of. Again, fall 26 is like, we are hoping and praying and expecting folks to be uploading their exams onto my ARO. So this semester, I want you to be able to talk to me if things are kind of clunky, if something doesn't make sense, if like phrasing is weird, if you're having an issue, if you really like something, please just let me know. Not only are our students going to be learning this, I recognize that you all will be learning it too. So truly, I'm not going to sit there and be nitpicky. I want you to be able to give me feedback. Thank you, Kate.
Of course.
And I'd like to kind of jump in as well, as having been here the longest of certainly of our group. what Maddy has been able to do has been an incredibly heavy lift because, it used to be students would come in, fill out paperwork. Our office would be mobbed with students who are writing these things out, throwing these papers at us on the way out the door. Now we've brought down our noise level. It makes testing even a whole lot better. Students don't have to come in. They can just register for all their classes online. Most of them are already probably registered for spring now, which that would have not happened until really the first week of class. So yes, it's an adjustment, but it's one our students have taken to very, very well. And I will be perfectly frank about it. At first, I did struggle a little bit just because I had to unlearn some bad habits. However, it is truly a godsend for us because it really has made things a lot easier. So stay with us.
Technology can be our friend sometimes.
Yes.
There is a question from Lynn, which is what
Great.
happens to the exams we upload to my AOR after the exam?
So great question. It is my ARO. So I am still kind of working out the actual like direct adjustment towards that. My understanding is that we will scan it into my ARO and then it will connect to the instructor that uploaded those proctoring instructions and put it into their instructor portal within my ARO. So you should be able to log in, see that the exams are complete, and download them from there. Currently, we are physically scanning documents, which we'll have to scan it to my ARO regardless, but it will also create a confidential space for people to house those exams. Got some more questions here. This probably looks so silly for you all with me leaning this way. It's okay, Lynn, you are totally good. All right, I know this is mainly for students, however, out of curiosity's sake, are there any resources for faculty members that might need a little help? Oh, you beat one of our slides. We actually have a faculty resources webpage on our website for you to be able to utilize, and there is a clickable QR code that you will see in the near future to be able to learn some of that. I'm concerned about the system having access to the exam after the exam is over. So something for you to be aware of, we extensively train our student workers to not be handling any exams that they are affiliated with that course for. So whether it is sealing an envelope, whether it is bringing an exam to a student, collecting that exam when it is complete, we make sure that all of our student workers are aware not to be touching any of those exams. When we say that the exam is in the system to access later, you would be the only one that would have access to it as the instructor. It does not go out to everybody. It is solely, the system kind of connects with Banner in that sense, where when the student signs up for an exam, they can basically checkbox one of their classes to say, this is the class that I have the exam in. And if you go into the system and upload the proctoring instructions, they can do a drop down to say, oh, this is quiz number 2, rather than them typing in, I'm taking quiz 2. So it helps kind of things get a little bit more organized in that regard. But again, you would be the only one that would have access to it. I can follow up with the folks who run the platform just to check and see how long the period is for that to disappear. I would assume that it's available for the term, but it might be you're able to download it once and then it disappears. I'm genuinely not sure. So let me reach out to them and I'll be able to get you all some more information in the coming weeks. Does that sound good?
Thanks, Maddy.
And with a completed exam, I mean, if you would like, you could certainly even come over and pick that up from us.
Oh, absolutely. We're still going to continue the practice of you can either have your exam picked up by you, scanned, or delivered to your department location. That's a really good catch, Pat. Thank you. So it's not that we are moving everything online. If you still want to have the physical copies of your exams, pop off. We can do that. Okay, let's continue because we've only got 6 minutes left, 3-ish slides. So I want to kind of acknowledge something. We've been getting a lot of questions about the Title II regulations that are going into effect in April. And I want to acknowledge that we are not the folks who are kind of spearheading that process. We work with the academic accommodations and housing accommodations for our students. But when it comes to the actual legal commitment of Title II through the ADA for the institution, that's actually through the Working Group of Accessibility, and they have an email, accessibilitypractices@oswego.edu. If you have any questions for them, if you want them to come in and train anybody in your department, anybody that is within your area, they are more than welcome to do so. So just shoot them an email if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And we wanted to just acknowledge that. The QR code, when this is sent out, it is clickable if you don't want to pull your phone out or you're looking at it on your phone, but that will take you to the accessibility, the digital accessibility webpage that kind of talks about Title II regulations and what's expected of you. Oh, and surprise, you beat us to it. It's the instructor resources website. It's called faculty resources. I'm actually going to change some of that terminology because not all faculty need this information. It is instructors as well. So the syllabus page is on there. There's some information about like what it means to have students that have testing accommodations with us. There's a lot of goodness for you to be able to dig around in. And if there's something that you wish was on there, let me know. I am the tech gal in our department, so I can make those changes in the website as needed. Okay. All right, and this is our penultimate slide. I know you've made it 46 minutes. Congratulations. So this is our departmental collaborations. I kind of wanted to acknowledge all of the different offices that we have worked with / connected students to or connected students from. So we talked a little bit about extended learning and them providing testing for folks. We work with the Office of Learning Services and the Tutoring Center, EOP. A lot of Dean of Students folks come our way, or vice versa. Title IX, as we talked about earlier, and counseling services. So the beauty of our office is we really have our hands in a lot of different buckets at this institution, and we would love to kind of continue that reach to you all as well. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a few folks. We honestly talk to everybody on this campus, I feel like. So if you want us to come and present to your department, present to your folks, let us know. We're happy to be able to provide that now that we have a full team, which is so exciting. Anything to add?
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us today. We have a couple of minutes for questions. And again, please remember, we are happy to come and do a presentation, to talk to your department, to talk to your office, to talk to anybody you want us to talk to, kind of about what we do, what we provide, and what it looks like.
One thing I want to add to before we get to bombarded with questions, which keep them coming. We are starting to use Laker Life a little more consistently this semester. Our graduate assistants are going to be providing study tips, any other type of support for students that just they don't have to be registered with our office to access that information. I think anybody could do study tips. Maybe they're a self-diagnosing neurodivergent like myself. So having that extra hand to be able to be successful in the classroom can be really helpful. So if you want to send any folks to our Laker Life page, you're more than welcome to do so.
And if you have any programs that you're offering, by all means, reach out. I don't want to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. So by all means, do share.
We would love to be able to send some of that stuff to our students.
Yes.
Like I know Campus Rec did that really awesome wheelchair basketball program. That was dope. We'd love to be able to help get some turnout and send that our students' way. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully. All right, we're here. Questions, comments, concerns, quarrels, quandaries, or curse words?
And curse words, we're looking at you, Becky Birch.
Is Becky here? Becky!
I have a very specific question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be teaching dance this semester. Obviously, there's going to be lots of music, loud noise, pretty much the entire class. What are some options I have for like someone who comes in and maybe has an aversion to constant music or loud noise? How can I best support them in that?
That's a great question.
Sure, that is a great question. I guess number one, letting them know up front, right, that this isn't just today, this is how things will look in this classroom. And having that conversation, I think communication is the key, right, and the most important. And to say to a student, what do you think you need in this environment? Allowing the students to wear headphones, allowing them to wear earbuds, maybe if that kind of helps soften that. And I think communication is the key. You know, a big part of what we do too, especially when students transition from K-12 to college, is kind of reminding them they're their own best advocate, and how really fantastic people here are on campus and want people to be successful. So we encourage students that they need to be their own best advocate and communicate with you. But it's so helpful if you are the one to initiate that conversation. And I would say with your entire class, right? You may have someone who, I myself have a hearing impairment and wear hearing aids. And if I came in and there's really loud music happening, that may be great. But if you're also going to be talking, I'm not going to hear anything that you say. So just kind of putting it out there. This is our environment. Anybody's got any concerns or questions about that, please come see me. We will figure it out.
And to make it that extra step of inclusive design, if there's any flexibility in your budget, maybe investing in just some of those foam earplugs that students can use, the disposable ones, and offering them to everybody to say, hey, we're going to be having some loud music. If you want to kind of keep these strapped, then you can. We also do offer some in the office too, if people are in a pinch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else you got for us, folks? Technically, we are at time, but we're all here.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Becky.
I'll email you. It's okay. Okay. So whatever. Hey, everyone.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, Becky.
I love you guys so much. Of course, this is why I have it on mute. Of course, the dogs start barking. They want to be a part of it. So I can send you an email, but I'm thinking of putting something together for Brightspace for, the top of the content page for the course to say, what if you think that you need accommodations, and what is the difference between an IEP and how to, so I will talk to you about it, but maybe we can put something together. And of course, thank you always, Piglet, for being a part of our conversation. This is why I'm on mute. Okay.
We've seen pictures of your dogs. That's okay if they made a guest appearance.
Yeah, it's surprising that she hasn't just shot up into the screen. She loves to do that.
Be careful, I'll triple dog dare her.
Oh God, it's terrible.
One thing for you all to be aware of too, SUNY has a great page that talks about the difference between accommodations in high school versus accommodations in college. It's actually linked on our website. So under the where to start tab, I believe it is literally right there on a button. Whether you have students that do or don't utilize those resources, it's a really cool website because it literally has 2 columns. This is what it means here. This is what it means here. So that could be a good resource for you, Becky. What's up, Lynn?
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
As Pat already knows me, and I work with you guys a lot, and I really appreciate everyone in your office. I'm wondering if you've ever thought of having a faculty support group so that faculty can cover and staff can talk to each other about accommodations, because as Pat knows well, my older son has autism. And he's currently pursuing a PhD and studying psychology and studying autism. So you might hear his name one of these days. But I have a lot of experience with helping students and supporting students with neurodiversity. So that might be, and I'm happy to chat with other faculty and staff about things that have worked in my classroom or things that might be good to chat about. So I don't know if you've thought about a resource like that where we can chat with one another about those issues.
We have not, but we are now.
Yes.
So the beauty of
thank you for that.
Sure, I'm happy to help out and share my knowledge and just share support too, because sometimes we just need to talk about things and go,
absolutely,
what am I doing wrong? What can I do here? How can I accommodate, the student, what's going on here? And sometimes having someone to share that with would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
And we finally have a full team to be able to take advantage of ideas like that. I would say when it was just Pat and Cindy for a very long time, they didn't have the capacity to be able to do some of these new things that we could support our institution better. And they wrote it down. So we're set.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you'll definitely hear from us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, feel free to shoot us an email. It's access@oswego.edu if you have anything else going on in your brain meets. But thanks for being here. It's good to see all of you, if not your face, your name with the black screen.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
You couldn't